KD returned last night after 23 games out of action. He looked legitimately perfect. We're also looking at LeBron. He's injured for the time being, but his timetable to return inching closer. Both of their teams on a quest to win a title this year. So, Chiney, well, actually, hold on. Monica McNutt, ladies and gentlemen, making her debut on First Take here today. She's also with us for this debate. But, Chiney, I do want to start with you here. Who do you think is going to have the bigger impact on their team? Is it going to be LeBron or KD when it comes to winning a title?
Look, this is like making me want to hop out of my chair because this is so difficult to really discuss because we all know what KD is. Imagine being so great that you can miss a whole bunch of games, step out onto the floor, do your thing, not miss a shot. And what do we see from Kevin Durant? He did everything. Like, he pushed the rock in transition. He had the mid-range. He knocked down the three. He was playing defense. He was rebounding. Cheat code, unfair. But this Brooklyn Nets team is built so different with James Harden, with Kyrie Irving, with LaMarcus Aldridge, with Blake Griffin, that I think LeBron James will actually be the one that will have the biggest impact because he's going to be wearing, and shouldering most of the responsibility for the Lakers to sort of repeat, especially given the pressures of the situation. Right now, he's averaging LeBron 25, 8, and 8. And I know that it's been greatness personified, but also greatness normalized. But for him to be able to try to take down a Brooklyn Nets team that is that loaded, it's going to be crazy. It's going to up his usage. I know Anthony Davis is a talented star and a great running mate, but LeBron James, they go by him. He's the one that will grab the rebound, then push it, then distribute, then take over. And so I see this as the same way we sort of saw the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Warriors in 2016. A team that was so much better, right, the Warriors, but LeBron James having to do the impossible to sort of win a championship. Not saying that he might do it now, but at this point, the load that he is carrying is so much greater. Kevin Durant can go out there and be the icing on the cake. LeBron James will have to put the whole team on his back.
I'm going to say something, ladies, that Stephen A. rarely says to his co-host, Max Kellerman. Shanae, I 100% agree with you.
Oh.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree with you, girl.
Wasn't sure where that was going.
Because it could have gone a bunch of different ways, right? No, because at the end of the day, look, I think Shanae said it perfectly. The load is just heavier for LeBron. This is why you build your super teams. You can debate whether it's right or wrong and how can teams do this and guys just getting together. But this is why you make the super team. Because if I have to miss 23 games with a tight hamstring, hey, the other two dudes, they can carry the load. Oh, and when I get back, I can smoothly transition right back into my spot and I can do what I do. I love when Durant was talking to our Malika Andrews, another shout out to Malika. When he was talking to Malika after the game, Durant was saying, look, I expected to come out and be comfortable. I've been with these guys. I may have been hurt, but chemistry is not an issue. And so to me, this threesome, listen, everybody doesn't have to do everything all at once. And I think it's a totally different story for LeBron. A lot more is expected of him in LA.
100%, Kimberly. I mean, this really, honestly, is not a question in my mind. Just look at what has happened with these two teams when both respective players went out on injury, right? The Lakers were sitting top 3 in the West-ish. Now we're having a conversation if we're nervous about them potentially having to play in the playoff structure of the playoffs. That's minus LeBron. On the flip side, you look at what Brooklyn has done. I'm not sure where they were in the standings when KD went out, but, the conversation was whether or not they could play defense. We started to see glimpses of that, and now they're tied for first in the East, and KD just got back. So you do the math. I mean, I think there's far more pressure on LeBron. However, beyond the makeup of the two teams, I also think Father Time is not in LeBron's favor. And while he's been tremendous to this point, I think he can see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit brighter than KD can. So I'm excited to see how this one plays out. I do think that of anybody in the league, LeBron is up for the task. And I know, Chiney, you and Wendy were talking about it earlier, the Lakers' ability to defend, I think really could mix it up. Because when I look at the East, it's the Nets East to lose.
All right, well, not only does LeBron probably want to get another ring for himself, but also if the Lakers were to win another title this year, they will set the record for most all-time titles in the NBA. So they do have a lot to lose this season, ladies. But let's talk about Kawhi Leonard playing for another team in LA, the Clippers. He could potentially become a free agent after this season. He is expected to re-sign with the Clippers, quote, barring a dramatic turn of events, according to The Athletic. Monica, who is under more pressure to win a title with the Clippers? Is it Kawhi or is it Paul George?
Charlie, for me, it's Paul George. Kawhi already has multiple rings, and while we expect him to return, he has shown that he is a mercenary for hire and doesn't need much. So if this situation becomes a little bit untenable for him, and by untenable, I mean PG doesn't show up in the playoffs again, or he's not feeling the vibe around the chemistry of this team, it would not shock me at all if Kawhi Leonard was not with this team next year. So I think the onus is on Paul George to show up and to shake off that Pandemic P nickname, which we know he did not like, but you got to perform. It's a results-driven industry, and he has yet to get to the pinnacle of the game in terms of winning a championship. And when we start talking about long-term legacies, like not only just for this year and the continuity of this group, but is that how you want to be remembered if you're Paul George? And I know plenty of athletes are pointing out, happiness beyond the court. But when we talk strictly your basketball legacy, yeah, he was great, but he never quite got there. Whew, that stings. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's very personal. And I'm going to say the names clearly. Obviously, we saw what happened with Russell Westbrook when people said, if you never get a championship, you know how athletes internalize that. And while you might be in a champion in life, when it comes to the court, this is where the pressure really lies, especially now that you're in your prime. And y'all, we're women here, and I love that we all agree. And I know that, at night when we're bored, all doing our adulting type of thing, we check Zillow, we check, real estate, because that's like the new adulting fun thing to do. And when I saw that Kawhi Leonard, I think bought a house in the Pacific Palisades, I was like, oh, I'm not worried about him no more. He probably wants to be out here. It's all good. And so the answer clearly is Paul George. Now, I really, really do not like that nickname. That is especially cruel, Pandemic P. That is the worst. But I think we have to put respect on Paul George because, if there's an athlete that's bounced back, especially what we've seen in the regular season, he started off on pace for a 50, 40, 90 season. He's still giving you 22 points per game. This is a top tier athlete. Put some respect on his name. But the reality is, Kawhi Leonard, he's good. His legacy is certified. Winning a championship in San Antonio, doing the one and done with Toronto, and by the way, delivering a championship to Toronto, cultural icon forever. And then now, going back home to Los Angeles, he's good. While Paul George, he has had a probably even more difficult route. We all sort of, it broke our heart to see him get injured the way he did with USA Basketball. He's fought his way back, made a name with himself in Indiana, but now, he's tag teamed with a guy that we already say has his legacy cemented. They're literally built to defend LeBron James and Anthony Davis and any other team that sort of comes their way based on their pedigree defensively as a duo. And so when I look at this duo here in Los Angeles, the Clippers, Paul George is the one that has to prove a lot. Even though he's proven so much to this point, the only thing that can fix that is a championship, and that's why the pressure's on him.
But Janae, you said it, right? When we have this conversation, it will not be left out that he was on a squad that was uniquely built to go and stop the Lakers. Now, if the Clippers don't even end up seeing the Lakers in the playoffs, I think that's a whole nother conversation. But I think because and in a way, he may be a victim of his own success in that he was so successful and produced those many numbers and was a guy that was in demand that could be on a team that was specifically tasked with knocking off another team. But we're not going to forget that in terms of the legacy. The table was set for you to go and perform, and the missing link right now is you performing big time in that moment. But I agree with you. That's certainly a tough nickname. It has stuck with me a little bit. He's having a much better season, but you know how it goes, Sinead. This is still the regular season. Don't give me Giannis from the past 2 years. We're trying to see what you're talking about come playoff time.
Can I play devil's advocate for a second? For a second?
Go ahead, girl.
So, all right. Is Kawhi not Batman? Is Paul George not Robin? I understand Kawhi's got the rings before and everything, but Tom Brady, he had tons of rings, didn't he? And there was still a ton of, I hate to bring it back to football, but that's what I do. Tom Brady, last year, all we talked about was, the pressure on Brady. He left New England, now he's in Tampa. Can he do it? The pressure on Brady and the Bucks. Is this season a failure? Like at the end of the day, like if you're gonna be a mercenary, and I do not mind that. People that know me know I don't mind somebody going to a better
We know,
situation.
sis. We know.
But